Three reasons why stock market is plunging today. There is very concerning worry that most economists are having right now that could impact the stock markets over the next few months. I'm going to talk about it at the end of the video. Today, S&P 500 is down 2.24%. Nasdaq is down 3.07%. Dow Jones is down 1.73%. It opened negative, it wanted to go up, then positive briefly, then after that, at 1:30 p.m. something happened, then it dropped. Nasdaq, it opened negative, then it wanted to go up, but around 1:30 p.m. it dropped. S&P the same way, went up, wanted to go up, then after that it plunged at around 1:30 p.m. So right now S&P 500 is down 10.1%, and it wanted to go up, then after that it dropped again. Nasdaq year to date 15.43%, and Dow Jones year to date 6.42% down. So there is something very interesting. So what's going on? Reason number 3, US issue export licensing requirements for NVIDIA AMD chips to China. So that happened yesterday. The stock went down after hours. So now today it opened negative. So H20 at AMD MI308. So basically, you need to request for the licensing in order to export these AI that could be used for high performance chips, exported to China. NVIDIA, they try to reduce the quality of the AI chips, and they particularly made this H20 just to be able to export to China. So right now, US government requires export licensing, right? But they never approve their license applications. So that means it's literally a ban. So how could that impact NVIDIA? NVIDIA said this could be 5.5 billion hit from surprise China chip controls. So that's why NVIDIA and AMD went down. Stock market opened negatively. And at the beginning of this week, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang attends $1 million per head dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago is a property owned by Donald Trump. So the Trump administration eases on NVIDIA chip restrictions after attending this dinner. So it was like 6 days ago. So something definitely changed. So what changed from yesterday from 1 week ago to yesterday? So let's see. So
NVIDIA GPU ban after Mar-a-Lago dinner, NPR. The Trump administration is reportedly pausing its planned export ban on NVIDIA's H20 GPUs to China, NPR reported. The shift followed NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's attendance at a $1 million per head dinner at Mar-a-Lago last week. NVIDIA is said to have pledged new investments in US-based AI data centers. Trump pauses NVIDIA GPU ban after
So April 9, Trump paused NVIDIA GPU ban, and he paused it after the dinner. So it's 1 million. So I'm not sure what is included in the 1 million. Do you know what's included in the 1 million? Comment down below. So he paused it. It's only lasts for like a few days. Then after that, yesterday, something happened. So that's reason number 2. NVIDIA chip H20 is like totally banned. You cannot export it to China. I think it's even worse than the Biden's restriction. I think that could give some space for Huawei to take over market shares in China. So reason number 2, ASML, they reported earnings this morning. They missed order expectation amid tariff uncertainty. So they reported net bookings of 3.94 billion euros, and 4.47 billion US dollars for the first quarter. So versus analyst forecast of 4.89 billion euros. So that's quite a big discrepancy, quite a big difference for forecast. CEO said tariffs are creating a new uncertainty for both economy and our potential market demand. It's very, very important. For business to prosper and hire more people, they require certainty. If we are going to make investment, if we are going to buy equipment, right, for the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 10 years, are the policy and politics stable? If it's not stable, we're just gonna wait and see. Or if the business is not good, we're just gonna lay off people. So that's what's happening. So the businesses, they just delay the order, they just pause the order until there is a new certainty what could happen in the next 3 to 5 years or even 10 years. So tariff, President Trump kept changing. One day something, another day a different thing. So it's very hard to do business like that. And also, there's one reason why stock market dropped at 1:30 p.m. It's Jerome Powell. So Jerome Powell said some very important things, and also there's one item that stands out for the attention. And most economists and businessmen, they are worried about that, especially Federal Reserve. What is that? Let's listen to this.
Bell rang just moments ago, the Dow down on fresh fears over tariffs as a big tech sell-off gains momentum. So let's take a look at our interactive stock market heat map. This is brought to you by FinViz. This is showing the top 500 stocks. It is a sea of red today, fueling the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell telling the Economic Club of Chicago tariffs came in much larger than anticipated, and they will lead to higher inflation. So let's take a listen.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation. The inflationary effects could also be more persistent.
Jerome Powell is very, very careful. Everything he says is backed by data, and every time he says something, he uses the words very carefully. That's very important because Federal Reserve, they only have two jobs. One is stable prices, like have inflation under control, and second one is a labor market, right? So make sure the maximum employment at stable prices. So he said, hey, much higher the tariff created slower growth and also rise in inflation. So that inflation could be persistent. He used persistent now, so the stock market knew that, oh, that could be really, really serious, persistent, right? It's not transient, it's not temporary. Because of tariffs, yeah, temporary rise right away, but the price gonna stay there, right? After that, it could be persistent. So that's why stock market dropped. That there's one thing that he said at the end of the video that's worry stock markets investor the most. So let's continue.
CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joining us now to walk us through what we just heard from Powell and how the markets are responding. Hi, Kelly.
Hey there, Jules. Okay, so kind of three takeaways for me from Fed Chair Powell. One, the sound that you just played, the fact that he said inflation could be persistent. It's not the first time that we have heard him say this, but I want to emphasize Fed Chair Powell chooses his words very carefully. He's very temperate. And so to now hear him start to use that word regularly is a bit of why you saw the markets react so viscerally when he started speaking. The second thing is Powell is a data guy, okay? He and the Fed, they are driven by data, and every time I have gone there and I have posed questions to him, he said, look, we have to wait for the data. Today, he said that the data from the first quarter shows that economic growth is slowing down, and that, I think, also caused a little bit of anxiety among investors. And then the final thing is that there is a possibility for stagflation, and I say that because he said, quote, we may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. The Fed's two mandates are keeping inflation in check and keeping the labor market and economic growth healthy. When you have those two at odds, that means stagflation. And I just want to play a little bit of sound and when he kind of spelled that out for us.
The administration is, as I mentioned in my remarks, is implementing significant policy changes, and particularly trade now is the focus. And the effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way, and some part of those tariffs come to be paid by the public.
So Jules, I mean, you listen to that, you can kind of understand why the market sold off. In fact, at 1:30 p.m. when Fed Chair Powell started speaking, if you looked at the Dow, it went like this. Now, we finished off session lows, but just hearing him say so much uncertainty that we're moving away from their goals potentially with the impact of tariffs spurred a lot of concern.
Yeah, you're used to his rhetoric and his messages, and his tone has certainly changed. We're also watching a big tech drop in the market. So we're talking.
So Federal Reserve Chairman said that because of tariff, it's very hard for them to achieve their goals, so lower inflations and higher employment, because tariff creates inflation, right? Then after that, it slows the economic growth. So what is the most scary word in economics is stagflation. Stagflation is where you have high inflation, high unemployment, low economic growth, right? So that means that if it's a low economic growth, if they want to stimulate economy, they need to decrease their interest rate. So if they decrease their interest rate, what's going to happen? Inflation is going to get worse. If inflation is going to get worse, it could take 6 months, 8 months, 1 year to get it back down. So how do they do that? They're gonna increase their interest rate. So when they increase the interest rate, it's very hard for business to borrow money. There's some of the business gonna go bankrupt because they could not get the loans. So that's gonna be crashing the economy. So yeah, you can bring the inflation down, but at the same time, you're gonna be crashing the economy. So it's very hard to balance these two things. Stagflation is the worst. If economic growth is slow and if it's deflation, it's good. It's very easy. Just decrease the interest rate. Then after that, increase the monetary supply. Then yeah, that's gonna stimulate the economies, and the deflation gonna become inflation. Inflation is good. Normal inflation around 2% is good, right? So if it's strong economy, high inflation, it's also easier than stagflation to control. All they have to do is just raise the interest rate like they did in 2022. Then after 6 months, 8 months, then after the inflation came back down, stock market already soared again. So, but stagflation could be worse, could last longer. It could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Nobody knows. If it's depressions plus stagflation, that will be a disaster. That will be a disaster. So that's why stock market is very, very worried about it. Investors are worried about it. So also we're gonna look at the technology stock, what happened, and let's continue listening to this.
And a lot of our 401ks are invested in K because it's a big driver of drives AI. It's also
NVIDIA. It sank more than, so we're talking about AI giant NVIDIA. It sank more than 8%. So what's going on there?
So NVIDIA is an important one, right? It drives AI. It's also a big driver of your 401k because it's a big driver of the S&P 500. And a lot of our 401ks are invested in index funds that track the S&P. So what happened here is NVIDIA announced that they are going to take a hit of $5.5 billion in this quarter. The reason is because of new export controls on the chips that they designed specifically to sell to China to satisfy the restrictions that were put in place under the Biden administration. So what this all means is that the current administration, the Trump administration, came to NVIDIA last week and they said, look, you're going to have to apply for a license if you want to sell any of these chips to China. Jules, normally none of those licenses are ever granted, and so this is an escalation in the tit for tat trade war. What it also means for NVIDIA, which is why the stock is dropping, is that they are going to have a hard time capitalizing on a market that they draw a significant amount of their revenue from, Jules.
All right, good information.
So because there's a trade war, there's a tit for tat, so China must have done something to US that President Trump changed his mind, within a few days, and banned the export. So what did China do? China orders airlines to suspend Boeing jet delivery amid trade wars. And US is the main importer, right? It's usually global importer. But there's one area where US is the main exporter. That is Boeing. Airplanes, right? US export lots of airplanes. So China orders airlines to, hey, stop buying from Boeing. So that's gonna create market share for Airbus, which is a European competitor. And US gonna lose out. And it also irritates President Trump because the main reason why he started trade war is because he doesn't like there's a trade deficit, right? So they are importing a lot. Now Boeing is the main exporter. Now Boeing is impeded. So if China Airlines stop buying, so the trade deficit will be worse, right? So China hit President Trump in the stomach. Do you think so? If you think so, comment down below. Who do you think will win? Would it be China or would it be the US? Comment down below. And Boeing's business just took off in 2024 in China. So right now they are having trouble again, right? But no matter what happens in stock markets, whatever, the most important thing is to stay invested. So this is within 3 years, from 2021 to 2024. This portfolio suffer bear market, right? But I started with 14,000, 17 times after the 242,000. So if you want to get started, you can open a stock trading account. The links will be in the description, comment down below. If you want to learn more, go to Master Risk Stock Option Cradle and go to playlist, and you can learn stock investing, option trading, and reverse option trading. If you want to talk to me and mentorship call, the link gonna be in the description down below as well. Share, subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.